Great. Thanks very much, Chloe. Well, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening as well. I expect that we've met by now, but I'm Jennifer Gibson. I'm the chair of this year's meeting, or the program committee. I'm also the head of open research communication for eLife. We're now embarking on day 3 of this year's OASPA conference, and I'm very much looking forward to carrying on with the same spirit and dialogue that we've had so far. We've heard a lot of support for the team behind the meeting and the committee, and I'd just like to say thank you. We really appreciate that. A meeting like this involves a lot of effort, as you know, and OASPA isn't a big organization. Actually, Claire and Bernie are only full-time employees, so there's a huge force of energy, excitement, and volunteers as well driving this program. All of our volunteer chairs and the committee members have just been stellar, but I'd also like to shout out to all of the speakers who've been presenting in English for us when English isn't their native language. There's been a lot of effort to present information from all around the world, and it's been done so effectively. So we'd just like to thank you for going to that trouble. At the same time, it's our first online meeting with such a broad global audience, and we are sensitive to the little hiccups that we've been running into. So we apologize for that, and we thank you for our patience. I think you'll agree with me that it's beyond worth it to be able to bring 600 people together from 70 different countries. So really pleased at the dialogue that we've been having. Now, at this point, if we were in person, we'd be rolling our suitcases around with us, and we'd have that little feeling of sadness about kind of summer camp coming to an end. So the questions that I have for you today to think about over the next 8 hours or so before we go our separate ways are these. What are you going to take home with you? What have you learned about the meeting and from projects around the world? And what are you going to learn about projects around the world today that you should share with your colleagues that you'll need to spread around your virtual office? And my second question is, have you got the contact information for the people that you've met, that you've connected with through the meeting, or who have inspired you? So I believe that there are details in the delegate list for most people that Bernie has circulated, but also you can contact people directly via message on the chat, or you may find them on Slack and Zoom. Please, let's keep these connections going. There's a lot of opportunity for us to follow up on. Okay, so now we're going to move into our second keynote of the event, the evolution of basic research and assessment metrics in China with Professor Wei Yang, introduced by my colleague on the program committee, Shuai Yan, and Claire Redhead is going to help facilitate the questions. So after the keynote, we will take a half-hour break and then move into a panel discussion on researchers, open science, and open access behaviors with presenters from the UK, India, and China. One final note from me is to remind you that we continue to operate under the participant guidelines that were shown on screen before I started speaking. They are also saved on Slack, and you'll see them on screen later on. So thank you so much for coming. Really pleased you guys are here. And Shuai, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to attend today's keynote speech. My name is Shuai Yan, currently an independent consultant. Since this March, I'm based in Beijing. Before this March, I worked with Spring Nature in China as the Academic Relationship Director. And before Spring Nature, I had been the Associate Chief Editor of Tsinghua University Press, and also the Chief Editor-in-Chief of Journal of Tsinghua University, Science and Technology. Today's keynote will be done by Professor Wei Yang. He's going to talk on the evolution of basic research and assessment metrics in China. While listening to Professor Yang's presentation, you can post questions in the Q&A panel and also to thumbs up those you like. Also, the list of questions will be posted to Slack today later. Now, my pleasure to introduce Professor Wei Yang. Mr. Wei Yang is a professor of Zhejiang University, China, academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, academician of the World Academy of Sciences, and also he is the foreign member of National Academy of Engineering. Professor Yang was the former president of Zhejiang University, former president of the National Natural Science Foundation of China. He is now the chairman of NSFC's advisory committee, and he is also the chairman of China's expert committee for building world-class STM journals. Professor Yang was graduate from Northwestern Polytechnical University, China, and he holds a master's degree from Tsinghua University, a PhD from Brown University in Rhode Island. In his professional career, Professor Wei Yang has been actively engaging and supporting the reform and innovation in the fields of research, communication, and assessment. Let's welcome Professor Yang. Over to you, Professor Yang.
Thank you, Shuai, for the introduction. So, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Wei Yang. Currently, it's 5:30 p.m. In the local time here. I'm now at the university campus of Zhejiang University, and the university is already in session, and all the students now come back to the campus and has classes. So the topic I would like to address today is evolution of basic research and assessment matrix in China. So I worked at Tsinghua University for more than 20 years as a faculty. Then I moved to the Ministry of Education of China in charge of the education of graduate students. Then I was appointed as the president of Zhejiang University since 2006, and I was the president there for 7 years. Then I moved to the National Science Foundation of China and as the president there for 5 years. So currently I'm back to the university and as a professor, and I also I'm the chairman for the Chinese Society of Academic Degree and Graduate Educations. So through my career, I have been the administrator, the professor, the PhD advisors, and so on. So we get involved into basic research and also the assessment for the different programs and scholars and so on. So as you can see from this slides, there's a picture of our campus. The building over there is a very quite a new building. It is the exact copy of Zhejiang University more than 120 years ago. The only difference is we enlarged the size everywhere, double its size. So when I was the president of Zhejiang University, the university was ranked by ESI, by the academic impact, as number 695 in the world. So through 14 years, You can see all the rankings in the Nature Index, in QS, Times Higher Education, ESI, and Shanghai Jiaotong Ranking, and US News, all grows up. That all the universities in China during the same period of time has moved quite fast. It is a dynamic growth. So as a consequence, our assessment matrix also moves very, very fast. Let me give you some example of that. So these slides give you the quantity of scholarly output from many countries in the world. As you can see, this green curve representing 28 European countries. This is academic scholarly output. This blue one is United States. We plotted from 1996 to last year, 2019. And you can see this red curve, that is China. And China has a scholarly output from China as surveyed by the people of Elsevier has growing up very fast. At the same time, we also has a very steady improvement in quality. If you measured by the field-weighted citation impact, and you plot the same diagram with respect to time, and you can see this curve, this red curve is China. It's moving from somewhere about 37% of the world average to now is just a little bit above the world average. That is a quality measures. And you can see that many countries is still very high above China. So China, the quality of scholarly output in China is not very good at time being, but you can see the trend in the history is this quality moves up very fast. And there's another indicators of top 1% cited articles. And you can see there's again, this very rapid rising of the contributions from China, this red curve. You can see now is the top 1% highly cited article contributed from China now is comparable to, say, to United States and also to many countries in Europe. So this is the general trend. That is, we start from very low and moves very dynamically for 20 or 30 years. Now we are reaching a level, now we have to change gear for our research evaluation matrix. And I'll give you another set of data. Another set of data for the COVID-19 situation. This is the scholarly output from China and also from many countries in the world. So this data comes from digital science, and they have a report that is through different weeks, we can see the growing of scholarly output in the world. And also the contributions from China is this dark red. At the very beginning, there are many contributions from China because at that time, the situation of COVID-19 is quite severe. Then after April or May, then the percentage of the contribution from China is declines. Then the contributions from United States and Europe, they increase. But since the work come from China for the basic research of the COVID-19 is published very earlier. So there are many of them get highly cited by the literature. So this is the citation count. And you can see this dark red, that's the percentage from China. So they are a very large percentage comes from China. So, and later on, so in March, in late April and March, then this percentage goes down. So this is, so since COVID-19 is a new disease for the human being, so the percentage, some early publications from China get very well cited. If we look at the top journals, and such as the Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, these are the top journals in medicine, and also the top journal in science, Nature, Science, and Cell. These are the number of publications during this, this period of time before June. And these are the number of publications, they have the keywords linked with the COVID-19. And they are the total site for these publications. These are the contributions from US and China and the European, and these are the citations to the work done by US, China, and the European. And you can see the citation for the very early works from China has been very more during this period of time. So that means whenever we have a major event, then the Chinese scientists are able to catch up with the development and make academic scientific contributions, and these contributions are cited. And now we're talking about the evolution of research assessment matrix in China. So we know the research assessment, they're basically divided into subjective assessment, basically the peer review, that is every scholar, according to their own opinion, give a judgment. And also their objective assessment, that is based on the data from a different database. So the research assessment in China is dangling between the subjective and objective assessment. At the very beginning, for example, in the 40s and 50s, 60s, 70s of the last century, basically the assessment was done in China was done by peer reviews. That at that time, we do not have so many experts. There are only limited number of experts. So experts dictate what is the outcome of research assessment. And later on, as we have more and more professors in various universities, academies of science, and so on, so they began to have a fight among different schools. So a fight between the leading scholars. So gradually the young researchers, they have to align with some big professors. Then they got their research achievement credit. And in late 80s of last year, so now at that time, China started to promote objective measures like SCI, Scientific Citation Index. At that time, the Nanjing University, I think, was the first university to fully use SCI as a measure to evaluate their professors. So then gradually, there are more and more universities accept the idea, and they start to change from only the peer reviews to peer review plus the database like SCI, EI, and so on. So and gradually SCI become more and more popular. It got popular within the executive people, because they are easy for the administrators to understand who has published many papers in essay journals, and they can also calculate how many points they have due to the number of papers they published times the impact factor of that journals. So gradually, the SCI become a mandate, the promotion process, and to use to evaluate scholars. So then it come to the another extreme, become the SCI mandate. Then the many researchers start to complain on the use of SCI only as the research assessment tool. So gradually, then those complaints grows larger and larger. And since this year, I think it's in March or April, they start to have a new policy. So the new policy, to be a new policy, they go first for the overcorrection. That is, the overcorrection is, they said, you cannot use SCI as the only measure. You have to use many measures, have to use the peer review, has to use many databases. And the academic committee of the university, in different university, they're entitled to decide which evaluation matrix they will use. So they publish two documents. So these are the Chinese written the documents. This is actually one by the jointly by the Ministry of Science and Technology, and also the Ministry of Education, and another one only by the Ministry of Science and Technology. So this new policy is start to engaging in China. And as I just said, it is an overcorrection, and the people also has many complaints about this new policy, but as the start, they become relatively quiet about that. And actually, we are now moving gradually from the objective assessment toward the subjective assessment, that is peer review. So in China, we have, say, typically 9 different scenarios, ranging from very objective assessment to very subjective assessment. So for example, the most rigid objective, I call rigid objective, is 10 years ago, many universities counting the performance of their faculty, they use credits or the KPI countings. And later on, they think this is too rigid, then to make this KPI counting to a flexible one. That is to adjust the KPI counting for different disciplines. Like in science and engineering, they use one systems of credit, and the humanity and social science, they use a different one, and medicine, they use a different one, and so on. And there's another one is even more relaxed from the rigid objective. It's called objective with voted rules. That is, the formula is has to be voted. The formula of the objective goal has to be voted by a committee member. But as they agreed, they voted passes, then all the data will come into this formula for the matrix. For example, there's a case in China, we have a selection of the world-class programs, and this selection was done this way. And if you move further, it's a hybrid assessment. That is true for many rankings, university rankings or programs in the world. There's some by the peer review, some by the data. And also, if you move further, it's peer reviews with data analytics. That is basically peer review, but before the peer review or during the peer review, the reviewer are given some data analytics on the material they want to read. Because in the case of a promotion, and so they ask the professors to vote who can be promoted, but they also listed each candidate. They calculate according to some formula, some points of a different candidate, and these points serve as a reference to for these voters to understand if according to this matrix, this professor, this candidate has 200 points, and the other candidate have 150 points, something like that. And if you move further to the peer review, then come to the program review or the grant review of the National Science Foundation of China. And also in some case for the journal review. That is, we use AI, artificial intelligence, matched peer review. That is, according to the keywords of the grants or of the article, then they searching around a big database for the expert, and found the expert has the highest relative correlation with the grants and also the article which you are invited to do the review. And if we further go down, they have a peer review with a precondition. That is, it's peer review, but before the peer review, you have to meet some precondition. For example, in some university, for the PhD thesis, some university has a precondition. You have to publish 1 or 2 articles in SCI journals, something like that. And for the faculty recruit, they have the threshold to check. That is, every candidate will come into the consideration, will publish maybe 20 articles in the journals regarded as very important to this programs and so on, and also in the promotions, also like that. And if you further move on, we have so-called peer reviews with guidelines. That is, when we decide select a candidate of a world-class university for the world-class universities. So we will ask the expert to vote, and before vote, we gave them the old abstract of each university they voted, what are the basic data for that universities. And also for the National Science Foundation of China, for the panel review of grants is also conducted with that. And the most regarded as subjective is so-called a random peer review. That is, for a research project, they use matching to get maybe a number of experts which can be used as peers. So then the computer randomly select maybe 20 or 15 of the experts who really will engage into the peer review of this project. Through all the practice of these 9 different categories, currently the practice indicate that the first 2 and maybe the last 2, at least the first one and the last one is not that good. And anywhere in between, that is a hybrid of a subjective and objective assessment has some value in the assessment for the purpose. Okay, now I moved on to these 2 documents. They have many criticism and comments, and also a lot of people say they are very, very good. And so the 10 major action taken by these 2 documents, I summarized there. And also I summarize the ups and the downs of this action. So the first action is they do not do the assessment uniformly. So they have called categorized assessment. So they said we cannot use the same assessment for the professor in humanity and the professor in engineering. So they have to assess different way. So the good thing is it put the relevance of this assessment to the content. And the maybe not very bad thing is, not very good thing is they divided the faculties into different silos. So this silo, they operating by this rule, and the other silo by another rule. And the second, they call a break SCI supremacy. That is, they use this, they can avoid rigid rule, but we are not able currently to have a better rules. So these are the problems. And the third one is the quality is more important over quantity. So the good thing is that will promote, that will be against the so-called salami slicing. But not so good thing is, this is not new. There are existing best practice on how to choose quality over quantity. And number 4 is they divided, they think there are 3 types of important papers. And so they have international publications and domestic publications and the conference publications. So these are the 3 types of papers. And this has, they put a new category on this. But the situation is varied by the discipline. For example, for mathematics, if you gave invited 1 hour or 45 minutes talk in the International Congress of Mathematics, then it is a very good achievement. If you publish a paper in IEEE transaction, that is a conference proceedings, this is also a big achievement. But in other, the many field, the conference paper were regarded as not as good, as solid as the journal publications. So that rule is varied by discipline. And the detailed rule, they decided to rule by academia, and they rely on the professionals. But on the other time, it promote the academic power. So the famous professors has the larger voice than the younger professors. So that's come back a little bit toward the previous situation of China in before 80s. So, and number 6 is the emphasis on contribution oriented. That is, they are looking for the typical contribution of a person, not how many papers they published. So that is very good in deny being counting. And then the not very good thing is who can have a correct evaluation for the contribution. That has to be done by very famous professors. And this also may cause the people spend many times on the personal relations and also on what in China we call the 关系, okay? And there are many, for example, the emphasizing the representative works. For example, you gave 8 or 3 of your representative work instead of your list, the whole list of your publications. So the good things, it gave you the milestones for scholars, but you know, now the milestones are, many of them are collaborated between several groups. So that means if you use this as your milestone, the other people cannot use also as their milestones. So that means that will promote the people to do it only by themselves as heroes, instead of they have a lot of collaborators to accomplish a work. I do not want to go further to the details for all these up and downs. So right now, the most important thing in China is we have a world-class, we have a program of building world-class programs and world-class universities, especially the world-class universities. Now, the first phase of this program has already been ended. So it needs to be evaluated. And then through the evaluation, we can decide which universities we can further support. We can increase support for some universities and cut the support for some other universities and things like that. And because like I just mentioned at the beginning, the progress of the universities in China and also the basic science of China is highly dynamic. So in China, there are many, many universities. So different university has different characteristics. They're in the different stages of development. So you cannot measure all these universities by the same rule. So you have to measure these universities by different matrix. So here I'm thinking about dividing the matrix for this university evaluation by 6 different milestones. In this different stage of these milestones, use different criteria. So the first milestone is what we call the characteristics, the second, dynamics, the third, statistics, the fourth one is ecology, and number 5 is education, and the last one is philosophy. So the current university, the situation of all the universities in China, we still don't have university belong to these 2 categories. So maybe only the first 4, which I will explain in detail. So the first stage is the university that want to develop into a better university, but they are still not very good. And if you evaluate these universities according to the general accepted matrix in the world, then it will be very difficult. So for those universities, we can say you have to show your university has your own characteristics. So these characteristics are referred to the collectively agreed goal by the whole university. That means the most of the faculty and students in the university agree. So this is our characteristics. We'll go to try to bring out these characteristics. So this characteristic can be disciplinary. For example, one university is specialized in aviation, and another maybe in agriculture. They're not comprehensive universities. And there maybe they have features in the culture, and they maybe provide students to certain field. That is, their student will become very good professionals in that field, and so on. So anyway, so this university must be very good and generally agreed by those characteristics. So these are the 22 ESI categories for mathematics, physics, and so on. And as you can see, these are the current ranking. So here I put a number 2. means the academic impact of China on mathematics, it is counted by citation, is number 2 in the world. And in the citation, space science is number 13 in the world. Okay, so this is according to EISI. And so you can see in some discipline, in some category, China is relatively fully developed, like in chemistry, engineering, material. So they're fully developed. In some other, like space science, psychology, China is not that good. So each university has a specialty. Not each, sorry. Many universities have their own specialty. In China, we don't have these 22 categories, but we have a more detailed category of 111 categories. Just quite recently, Times Higher Education make a university ranking according to this 111 categories. And so that is in the same measurement as the domestic measurement in China by different categories. And so for the culture thing, is one thing is very important is the research integrity. So research integrity can be somewhat measured by the retraction rate. And if we plot the retraction rate with respect to time, that is, I plot from 1996 to last year to 2019. So the ordinate of this plot was calculated by the number of retraction of a country divided by the number of publication at the same year of the same country. Then divided this ratio by the world average. So this gives you this plot. You can see this right curve is China, and China is a very high in the year 2010. So 1 means world average. So in 2010, China is almost 6 times of the world average. So in that year, the retraction from China is actually 80% of the worldwide retraction. And we realize this is a very important issue. Then start a large scale education and training. And also we have engaged relatively strict rules on the treatment of those people who do not hold research integrity. Then you can see this curve drops. And currently, this is about 1.3. In the year, last year is about 1.3. So that is still 30% higher than the world average, but much better than this year. And you can see that many countries have this peak. So this blue is Japan, and this golden one is Germany, and so on. Okay. And the second milestone, second category, or second milestone, we call it dynamics. The dynamics, we do not use the special measurement, which is commonly agreed by one university. Instead, we use the general approximates agreed by most universities in the world, like education, like academy, like the resources of the university, like the rankings, and so on. So we use this commonly acknowledged proxies. And but we plot each university, there are these proxies with respect to time. We see if there is a dynamics has been developed for this university, is still not very good in the world, but the dynamics indicate it will go up, okay, in 10 or 20 years. So you have to show the clear dynamics of the generally agreed measurement, a matrix of the good universities. You can show that your dynamics is to let you go higher and higher. So that to measure your growth potential of the universities. So this is called dynamics. So I gave you some example. This is years, and the ordinate is something like the quality of the top research results. And the one is the world average, okay? And you can see this is Ivy League. You can see it's very high. And this is AAU, Association of American Universities. This is Russell Group. So these are the different university leagues. And this one is what we call the C9 League, or C9. That is the 9 top universities in China, and the combinational effort. So this does not depend on the scale of how large this alliance is, and so on. You can see at the very beginning, it's very low. It's only less than 30% of the world average. And then it demonstrates the dynamics to go up. And then it keeps goes up, and now it's already at the same level, say, as Russell Group and AAU. So this called the dynamics. And the third milestone is I'm already start too many times. The statistics, that is not to look at the dynamics, but to see the current statistics. And the number 4 is you have to have the sustainability to maintain your status. The university is already developed a self-esteem, and it's ecologically nourishing, and it can do self-actuation. It's no longer care about the ranking. And the number 5 is raised to the education level. That is, you can have the best student, you have the incubators for the world-class faculties, you can have new school for the new academic thought and the new visions of education, so that you will become a global education center. Like I mentioned, we do not have university in this category yet. And the last one is the philosophical height. So you generate a lot of truth, knowledge wealth, and you are responsible to build up academic rules, and you have many renowned scholars. So I think I have to end here, and thank you very much. And I mentioned this is my hometown. That is the city which I'm currently located. This is Hangzhou. This is the town center. Okay, this is not a Chinese painting. This is a photograph in the morning. So we called Paradise on Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yang. And you truly do live in a beautiful place. I thought your campus picture looked wonderful as well. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us and for a fascinating insight into the picture in China. We have time for just a couple of questions. So I have one here. Could you say something more about the research evaluation policy announcement earlier in the year that encourages or requires STM researchers in China to publish at least 1/3 of the representative papers in domestic Chinese journals? And do you know what fraction of universities and institutions in China have implemented this policy?
So like I said, it's an overcorrection. So the Chinese journals, it's not only the journals written in Chinese, they're also including the journals which publish in English, and but is based in China. So we have hundreds of such journals. For example, the Chinese journals, it has about 400 which has been indexed in SCI and 700 in Scopus and so on. So these are the 1/3. I think I cannot find any good base for that. And but anyway, that means typically you have to for some evaluation. You have to give 3 representative works. That means one of the 3 has to be either a work published in the Chinese journal, STM, it can be English, or an award you received, or a patent, or something like that. Yeah. The other 2 can be in the good international journals. Yeah.
Another question here. The policy in China is shifting from quantitative measures to more subjective qualitative measures. Do you think funding organizations and institutions will sign up to DORA? That's the San Francisco Declaration of Research Assessment. Is DORA known, and does it matter in China?
I have no idea about this question.
That probably answers that question, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware how China compares to other countries? I think this means if different assessment metrics are used. How can we compare what China's doing to other countries?
You know, I mentioned different metrics. Then at the top, it's the same as everybody used. In the lower part, you know, in China, most people speak Chinese. So the many universities, they are specialized in one discipline. For example, my father works 40 years in a University of Petroleum, okay? And this university is specialized in the petroleum, the refinery, the drilling and things like that. So if you use the commonly matrix to measure this university, it would be not very fair. So you have to measure this university by the measurement the university want that all faculty has generally agreed. That is, measure their contribution to the petroleum industry.
Thank you. I'm going to, I'm not sure if I can see messages popping up that to carry on for a while, but I'll perhaps just do one more question before I hand back over to Shuai.
Mhm.
When the new research assessment policies were announced, there was some speculation that it may disadvantage open access publishing as APCs were capped in some instances. What are your views on this? Do you think open access will continue to flourish and grow in China under these policies?
Actually, I have one comment written here, but I didn't say. You know, they have a cap on the APC, which can be given by an article. This cap is like $3,000 US, okay, per. And I don't know how they decided this. Maybe they're according to some average measure. They think $3,000 US may be good enough. But if it's higher than $3,000 US, then the document said the academic committee of each university or each department can decide if they can use the government grant to cover the APC. Okay, suppose some people in a university, in a department publish a paper in Nature, okay, and it would require an APC maybe much higher than $3,000 US. Then he want to use his grant, then he has to make an application to the academic committee of his department. Actually, the department can make a list on which journal is allowed to exceed this cap. Okay, so this is one approach. Another approach is the professor. They have two different grants. One is the grant from the state. The other is the grant from the industry, the commercial. And the grant from industry, they can always use to support their APC.
Thank you. Shuai, it's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Professor Yang. Very informative and also very wonderful presentation. I saw some charts here and also some questions here, and I think we don't have more time to answer all the questions here. If you are interested in Professor Yang's presentation, I think you can email to me or to Professor Yang or OASPA or CCC, something like that. Also, I'd like to thank my dear audience for your attending and engaging. Thank Cloud to manage the questions. Today's forthcoming sessions and times are on a slide coming up in the break. Welcome back in this afternoon or the evening in China if somebody here. Please continue the conversation on Slack or Twitter, OASPA2020, and that a link to landing page hosting display. Replays will be shared while recordings will be uploaded by CCC as soon as they are processed, hopefully just a few hours after this session. Also, may I suggest my dear delegates to start or add to a channel with a brief translation in your own language of your key takeaways. Finally, huge thanks to our generous sponsors who are going to be shown on upcoming slide and have truly helped in this very special year and to make the event happen, and welcome many unfunded individuals from various countries and regions and keep faith as low as we could. Thank you, Professor Yang. Thank you all again. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.